Hey there, this is Malorian, and this is going to be another Paintisode. So for those who don't know what a Paintisode is, basically I just sit here and I do some painting. The idea is you don't need to watch. You're probably doing your own painting at home, and in the end, you'll have painted stuff, I'll have painted stuff, and it's all fantastic. It's really just white noise playing in the back. However, this time I'm finally getting, you know how in the past I've tried to answer your questions, but because of the weird time zones and stuff, it's only like the rare person that can actually join this. What I did is actually did a video that said, hey, give me your questions. And so I'm going to be going through those today. I'm going to be drinking a Pepsi and lime with Smirnoff, which is a crazy combination because you actually don't taste the vodka at all. It's a little bit dangerous, actually. All you taste is the lime. Now, what I'm going to be painting today is my second Firefly. Now, this is a Signar Jack, and a Signar Jack you don't see very often because it doesn't really do anything super crazy, and even though it's not super expensive, it's not super cheap either. So why am I painting my second when most people don't even use their first? Well, it's because for a tier. For Nemo 2, to get to tier 2, you need to have 2 Fireflies, and there you go. Nemo 2 is really fun and really awesome. I bought a Storm Tower really just for the tier as well because you get a free one in tier 3, I believe it is. And so now I'm just going to finish these Fireflies. So first one done. I did this during the tournament, and we're on to this one here, which shouldn't be too hard. You know, I've already done the first 3 colors, and it's really now just going out the gold and the dark silver and clean up after. So should be able to do that in about an hour. If it takes a little bit longer, so be it. Like I said, I'll be answering those questions from the other post first, but if people are watching, they can also ask their own questions, and I'll get to those too. So, getting to those questions, from John Tailby, he says, how much of War Machine happens outside of the tournament format? Do people play campaigns and make up their own missions or introduce narrative events into the games, like, say, Materium does? Or is only tournament games or prep done, basically? Given games with nicely painted armies are much better than games where the contents of the blisters are glued together during the deployment phase, how do you get War Machine painters, players to paint their models to better than paint daubed on in some wash? Which is, I don't know if it's a stab at me, that's really what I just do. So let's just take this one step at a time. First of all, I mean, you can't really paint all of any game with a broad brush. Doesn't matter if you're doing Magic the Gathering, if you're doing Halo, if you're doing whatever, there's always going to be a spectrum of players that play the game. So there'll be some players that play mainly for tournaments, some players that play mainly for fun, and then even some other players that really are just collectors, right? Who just really want to collect whatever they like from the game. Now, in War Machine, does that really skew one way or the other? I would not say so. Tournaments are definitely a big part of War Machine, but there are plenty of people that have never played a tournament in their life. There's lots of casual play, and you know, as nice as tournaments are, it's just like 40K or fantasy, where you get your group that likes going to tournaments, and you got your group that doesn't like going to tournaments. So it's really all the same. Now, as far as campaigns and so forth, they actually do have campaigns that's actually made by Privateer Press. They have new ones every year, and some of them actually come with their own missions as well. In fact, some of them, what they do is they'll have modifications to current units. So let's say that normally you would have your Ironclad or your Centurion, whatever. What they'll do is for each faction, they will release a new card with the rules for that model that are slightly different. So all of a sudden, like, oh, you have Counter Slam, or oh, you have this. It's just a little bit different for that campaign. So not only do they have it so that they have fresh campaign scenarios to play, but they also change the rules of the units as well, sometimes as well, to make it a little bit more interesting. Do you have the freedom to make up your own scenarios? Yeah, I mean, just like any other game, you're only held back by your own imagination, really. I mean, especially once you go through a couple of those campaigns. I mean, if you aren't the typical creative guy, once you go through a couple of those campaigns and start seeing the different options that are there, or as well, every single year they come out with a new steamroller package, and there'll be slight variances to the scenarios. And so what you can do then is, as they change, you still remember, like, oh yeah, remember back when you used to do Mangled Metal, remember back when you used to do this or that, and you can always say, hey buddy, let's come over and play whatever game, and lots of fun. Now, as for the second one, it's actually the same answer as the rest. In fact, I would say that Privateer Press does more to force you to paint your army than Games Workshop does. And the reason for that is because Games Workshop does not produce any tournament formats. They just say, here's some models, here's some rules, go play. Well, what Privateer Press does is some of the formats require fully painted armies. And in fact, inside the packages for the other ones, like the regular steamroller, there are variants where you can set it so that, okay, you require painting. So really, if you want to go, say, a good example is hardcore. If you want to go to hardcore, or if you want to do Iron Gauntlet, you have to have a painted army. It's just the way it is. Whereas if you're going to Games Workshop game, it's really up to the TO. So past that, how do you get War Machine painters? Can you get that, please? If you want War Machine players to actually paint their stuff, it's the same as anything else, where you just need to have a support group one way or the other, however you want to build it, that is supporting the community to actually get people together. So for my example, I wanted more Peter stuff. I wanted to build a way that people would be supported. So what I did there is I set up my Tale of War Machine painters, much like the Tale of Fantasy painters I used to do when I was doing fantasy. And it's like, hey, you got to try and paint up this much each month. And if you fail, you for the fantasy, we gave out jokers. When this one, there's a line of shame. And yeah, I mean, lots of guys. I mean, there have been hundreds and hundreds of points painted just because of this Tale of War Machine painters. Now, another thing that Privateer Press does is that they have their Journeyman League. And the Journeyman League is designed to get new players in the game and also to get people to paint their stuff. And the way they do that is that, of course, you get points during the campaign for winning the games, but you also get points for painting models. So clearly, if you want to try and get ahead, you can only do 3 games a week. So you will max out on the number of win points you can get. So really what you have to go for is stuff like painting. And so that as well really supports and makes people want to paint their stuff. So that's a long one, but there you go for John Tailby. Next up is going to be from X David Williams, who is probably a Welshman, saying, huzzah! Question in as follows. In War Machine, I have P-Striker and E-Striker as my Warcasters. I have other models that sort of go along with the Warcaster I am using. I do not have a Colossal, as I'm afraid, or as I'm not a fan of it, and only buy models I like, which is where the sort of comes from. So not knowing much more than that, what are my chances of being and staying competitive? I can give you more info if needed. Thanks in advance, X David. Well, you picked two very casters for that style. Normally, just picking the things you think look cool is not really the best thing to do in any game, right? Tactically speaking, rules should come first, and if you're going with looks, you're rolling the dice. Luckily, both those casters, P Striker and E Striker, will fix that in different ways. First of all, P Striker, Striker 1, he'll fix it because he is a really balanced caster. He supports shooting, he supports armor, he supports a lot of different styles of units. So no matter what you're really, he has a buff for you. So that really works there. It's really hard to make something that P Striker can't help in some way, such that a good player couldn't make the list work and do well with it. Now, Striker 2 fixes it in a different way. Striker 2 is basically a super solo that pulls off these assassinations all by himself. And really, a lot of times, all he needs his force to do is to act as a distraction. So you can really, again, take whatever you'd want, be as crazy as you want, and in fact, the more janky, crazy stuff you take, the more distracting you'll be for your opponent, and the better chance you'll get that opening where Striker 2 can just go and overcharge and sneak through and just kill that caster and just win you the game. So actually, you picked two very, very good casters for that style of, let's call it, model collecting. Next, we're going to Ross Figure Painting Co. UK. He says, thanks for chance to post a question. Time zones make it tough to catch you live, and I watch every week on YouTube. Well, thanks for watching. Loved your vid on the various factions and think they all look pretty cool. I generally enjoy painting more than playing, and I'm thinking of painting up some figures just for fun and then maybe offering them for sale. Clearly, from his name, he's a painting company. If they don't sell, I'll be well on my way to own a faction, so no harm done. Which figures do you think would be most generally popular, used for people to possibly buy? And are there any that appear in many different lists? And there are. There definitely are, like, let's say for Signar, we'll just start there. Black 13th. Black 13th are a great unit that you will see in many different lists. Usually the only thing that stops you from taking them in Signar is that they're a character unit, so that in a multiple list format, you can only take it in one of them. But definitely, oh, I screwed up a little bit there. Definitely they'll be in a lot of lists. I could go through all the factions and I could list these all out. However, being a person who's not really well versed in War Machine, what you might want to do is go to Discount Games. Now, Discount Games, they have the tournament lists from the big tournaments in the States. And from there, they'll say, hey, this person came in first, second, third, blah, 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 blah. And these are the models that they took. And in fact, there's a little link where you can just buy them there as well. So what you can do is, from looking at those lists, you can very easily see which ones are doing well. Now, the thing that would stop me from in this video saying, here, buy this and this and this, is that War Machine is a living and breathing, changing machine, where 1 second, one unit is all the hotness and all the tournaments, and then either because there's a new release, there's a new caster, so there's new abilities or interactions, that changes, or somebody figures out like a new combo or just as well with a different unit, and all of a sudden it's now the big news. A big one is about Idrians. Idrian Skirmishers is a Menoth unit that I love just because I thought they were cool, but in general they were seen as pretty much garbage. Then all of a sudden a guy made them win and showed a good way to get use out of them, and then all of a sudden everybody was wanting to get them. Another one could be the constructs for the Circle of Obros, or Circle Obros. Most of the time, you didn't really see them a lot. They're really low pow. All of a sudden, Bradigus comes out, a caster that really turns them on. Well, and it's actually forced to take them. And all of a sudden, bam, they are sold out in most stores. So, always go there as you try and do that, trying to decide what I'm going to paint so I can sell, and just see, what won at the last tournament, and then paint that. In fact, you might want to do the same thing basically that Discount Games is doing, and in fact, we could even do a partnership with them to get more out of that. But start seeing, what won the last tournament, bam, and then start saying, I'm gonna sell the JVM list, right? The Jake Van Meter. He's a very big guy for the Legion of Everblight, and typically, whatever he is really pushing and doing well with, a lot of people will follow. Kind of like was me with fantasy, right? If all of a sudden I was making trolls do really well, you'd see more trolls around. So follow stuff like that. Next one here, X Irish Skills X. In terms of tournament environment, do you find a difference between wargamers that play Warhordes versus ones that play GW games? Example, age, maturity, etc. No. Okay, let's change that a little bit, because there is a difference, I feel, with even just within the GW systems. So whereas in fantasy, I saw on average older players, 40K is really designed to be pulling in the younger crowd, right? It's a, hey, new player, here's some flashy Space Marines, buy them, they're fast, they're easy, learning how to play the game is easy. So the average playing age for 40K is a lot lower than fantasy. Now, that being said, of course, there's always a full spectrum, blah, blah, blah. There's lots of mature players that play 40K. But what I'm trying to get at is that between fantasy and War Machine, I would say it's exactly the same. I would say the average age is probably the very older player. But again, I guess a lot of them don't really to tournament. I would like to hear on the current need. It's state of Cryx really in the tournament scene. Most of the in considering cast I have spoken to for lists are Hartfield, Cryx, and powerful each areas where they really excel. They excel in having really good troops and really good casters. So some of the good casters would be things like Gorshade 3 is really good, actually good. Scar 1 and Scar 2 is really good. Denegra 1 and 2 really good. Then tournament. It's not really something where you're stuck with something like Minions, where you don't have a lot of choices. They have quite a bit. That ticking noise at me out. Anyway, that's all. swarm you. All of a sudden, you have these Styxis raiders that are rushing up to you and have an insanely high defense, reach, multiple attacks. Then you have all these weapon masters coming at you. They have these awesome bile thralls that are exploding and just killing all your guys. They have mechana thralls, and as soon as you kill them, they come back to life. And you're really just getting swarmed and overrun. And it's really just this huge infantry attack. And as well, you'll have the casters with whatever little crazy buff they have as well, right? Like if you're talking about Scar, oh great, all of a sudden all these guys get an extra dice to hit, and once per game they'll get +5 strength and armor. And it's just, they kill whatever they want. Now, this is why they're not dominating the top tournament scene. Now, this is where local meta will really change from global meta. If you are playing with just you and your buddies and you're just learning the game, Cryx are crazy. It's like, wow, they're amazing, right? How am I going to stop these guys? They're so good. But where that starts to change is when you start getting into the more competitive areas. And that's because when you start getting to the more competitive players who are preparing for steamrollers and all this, is that everybody has a plan for Cryx. Not only will you have a plan for Dude Swarm and have some list that can really pump out the attacks, you will always have Cryx in your mind. And so because of that, that's where War Machine is great, where it's almost like a self-balancing. Whenever some caster comes out and somebody says like, oh, wow, they're amazing, you know, there's no stopping this caster, well, the way that they get stopped is that people start preparing for them. So when Butcher 3 first came out, he caught everybody off guard. He was winning all these tournaments. And then people started saying, hey, I got to start designing lists to deal with him. And, of course, I mean, it's not just him. It deals with other builds as well. But then that's why Butcher 3 goes away. It's because everybody's planning for Butcher 3. Morvana 2, she comes out, and she's dominating the whole tournament scene. People start planning for Morvana, making sure they have lots of remove from play and range attacks that can threaten her. And all of a sudden now she's falling out of favor because people are planning for her. So this is really why Cryx don't do well in the bigger tournaments. It's just because they don't really have a lot of different play styles. Usually, almost all their lists are based off of their amazing infantry. And so really, as long as you have one list which is set up to kill lots of infantry, guess what? That's your Cryx drop. Now, that doesn't mean it's an auto win. Their Cryx do have some other builds. Say if you're going with the Gatsby 2, all of a sudden you're dropping clouds down, they can't see your stuff, or all of a sudden let's say you go Mortenabra, right? Mortenabra is one of the few casters in Cryx that really makes their jacks good. And so all of a sudden, if you have a list to go up against Cryx and you're ready to shoot down all this infantry and all of these cheap jacks are coming at you, surprise, you're going to be in some trouble. So in general, though, what I'm trying to get across is that I don't feel that Cryx is too powerful. If you look at the larger tournaments, it's not like Cryx are dominating and winning everything. And I really explained the reason why. It's just a self-correcting system where the stronger something is, the more people prepare for it. So there you go with that. Jasper W says, oh, this is a long one. I got to open it up. Hey, Mr. M, great idea to give people the chance to post questions up front, because for giving people like me in Europe, the normal time is very late at night or very early in the morning. So to the question, what are your thoughts on Bradigus? I just got him as a present, painted him up, and going to bring him to my first tournament this weekend at 35 points. 2 lists, death clock, 35 minutes, he believes. 35 minutes, I think, is 45 minutes. I will bring Chromac in Bradigus. Good pairing. Bradigus will be Megalith, Wold Guardian, Wold Warden, and Shifting Stones. Chromac will be Stalker, Feral, Gorax, Lord of Feasts, Blood Trackers, Swamp Gobbers, and Shifting Stones. Any ideas on the list? What are on the list? What other lists I should run? One would be appreciated. First of all, let's talk about the first thing. Bradagus, like we said, is this new caster that is taking the meta by storm. Funny enough, when he was first announced, people were like, "Ah, that's horrible." Like I was saying, most people were saying that those wolves, those constructs aren't really all that great. And so when Bradagus was leaked to have a rule that forced you to take those constructs, it was like, yeah, he's garbage. Yeah, we don't need to worry about this guy anymore. It's too bad. Oh, what's this? He's also in a large base, so he's hard to hide. Yeah, this guy's total garbage. Well, then a couple of things happened. One, people learned how to play Bradagus, and they realized that large base or not, when you have an ant that gives you you're kind of hard to shoot. Second of all, shooting out rifts and all these awesome things with his magic, he's kind of hard to get to. You have all of your constructs that are shooting and turning things into trees all over the place, or if you have those mannequins going and making forests in key areas, they just can't see you. And unless you have a lot of answers to Pathfinder, you are getting out-alphaed. Now, past learning how to actually play him, people also realized, or when it came out, that his tier list is amazing. Clearly, it was going to be, because the biggest negative to a tier list is how it limits your choices. But with Bradagus, you're pretty limited anyway. So that negative is pretty much gone, and now you're just left with all these benefits as long as you just take what's on the list. Some of that being a third set of stones, which really makes you have tons of different vectors that you can attack from. And his assassination is crazy. What a local guy does here with Bradagus is pretty much wins every game by turn 2 if you don't have a very strong understanding of what's going on. And that's just because you set up your stones, you have your other guys go up to build up synergy a bit, you have one set of stones, try and teleport another set of stones, so you can double teleport Bradagus, he feats to get further, and Bradagus himself is killing you. And like I say, unless you are very much prepared for it, it is just going to kill you. So very, very strong in that regard. Now, another question about this is also the point size. Now, at 35 points, you can't really get much from the tier, and you're not really getting a lot of what he likes. So I don't know if at 35 points, Bradagus is the best type of caster to go with. If nothing else, I mean, you just got him, so you want to learn him. So I'd say go for it. But you have a lot of big stuff there, like Megalith, World Guardian, World Warden. But what he normally wants is more of the smaller of his constructs, really to build up that synergy chain, right? Synergy with him is awesome. And for those who don't know what synergy is, what that does is that basically this is this spell you put up, and then every single time somebody hits in your battle group, your synergy goes up. And when your synergy goes up, you get +1 to hit and +1 damage, and this counter just goes higher and higher and higher. So like I was saying, if you have, let's say, 4 guys to go first, and they attack and just hit something, well, when you're +4 to hit and +4 damage, I don't care what you are, you're getting pretty damn dangerous. So again, the larger the point size, the more you can get from that. So I don't really know if 35 is the best, but again, you're just trying to learn them at this point, so that's not that big of a deal. Let's see, I'm finally done the gold. I'm about 25 minutes in. That's not too bad. Nope, I didn't get everything with the gold. I buggered up. So there's that. Bradigus will be really good, but you'll need to practice with him. I'm sure with what you have here, do not drop him against Cryx or anything with Weapon Masters. They'll just kill those heavies like crazy. What you'll want to be dropping that against with that type of a build. Oh, you're going to have to really look for that assassination. I mean, the problem is that you really are on the heavy side here with not many models and not a lot of tools. So it is actually going to be very tough. If instead of Bradigus, you were running that build, say with Baldur 2, it'd be a lot more solid and strong and defensive. But really what you'll want to be doing here is you could drop this up against somebody who is good with shooting, and they won't really understand that you have that impervious flesh, and then maybe you can just teleport to get in there, but you're really going to have to push that whole teleport thing. So just push up as much as you can. You'll have to use like your one World Warden. Sorry, you got two of them. Oh, I thought you had two Guardians. Oh, two Wardens. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, just try and build that synergy and then just try and teleport something in and feet for the kill. Like, really, you want to be looking for assassination all the time. Now, Chromac, I wish you would have taken a second Stalker in there, because that's normally what he does, is does a whole yo-yo thing, but you can still make that work here. Of course, you're going to want Wild Aggression onto the Stalker. He's going to do his crazy stuff. Impervious Flesh, where is that going to be great? Best to go? No, I guess that would go onto the Feral, and he also can warp for armor as well, so that's not too bad. But yeah, he's going to be more of your attack and run away, and you can get some pretty good assassinations with him as well. So, like I said, do not, if you see something with lots of Weapon Masters, don't drop Bradigus, drop your Chromac, because they can deal with that type of stuff. All right, let's keep on moving on. I'm going to actually kind of see if anyone posted any other questions who are watching this right now. Got 6 watching, which is good, but it looks like no comments yet, which is fine. You know, maybe you guys want to listen and see what I'm saying about these other questions. Yet, no other comments yet. So I'm going to be going back to these ones. Next one is from Steve Wigg. And Steve Wigg says, "Hey, Malorian. I have just started trying out War Machine and in fantasy love the dwarves, so I picked up some Rulik. I was wondering if you have any tips on how to play them or what units are good. My caster is Gordon Grunback." Well, let me tell you one thing right off the bat, that you are seriously limiting yourself. The Rulik faction, the Seer Forge, is what do they call it? A contract within mercenaries. Now, the thing is that you can take these guys with other contracts as well. I mean, he never says here he is just going to be Seer Forge, but if he's only taking them, then clearly that he just might as well be to gain those benefits, because they are very slow. So what they have a rule as for is that if you're going with that contract, you get this extra distance for your deployment zones and all this to kind of really help your movement. Now, the problem is that, like in fantasy, it'd be like saying, you know what, I'm going to make an army that is all Savage Orcs. And the problem is that then you'd be very limited. You could take your one unit of Biggins, you could, oh geez, take a bow unit, then maybe some Savage Boar Boys. And what I'm trying to get at is that you had so many options, but you're forcing yourself only to take these few models that you like. So just understand going in that you're making it very hard on yourself. I'm not saying you can't win, especially with some new stuff that came out in the last couple of years, really made them a lot more viable. However, just realize that if you just did mercenaries based on Rulik, it would be a lot better. Now, the mercenaries, for a long time, so mainly we're talking about the dwarves here, we're not all that great. They're, you know, Forge Guard are awesome, but they're really slow. And if you don't have any other unit to kind of bog things up so you can deliver them, they just died. All your stuff is so slow, and it was really hard to make them work well if you're going all Rulik. Then they got their Colossals, and then they got the Earthbreaker. And Earthbreaker plus Thor is just amazing. So what the Earthbreaker does is he's this big, awesome guy with 2 big rocket hands and some extra guns on him. But his biggest thing is that his guns do knockdown. And basically, a lot of casters depend on their high defense. And so if you can knock somebody down, it's game over. And this guy can do it multiple times. Now, if that wasn't dangerous enough, then you have guys like Thor, and what he does for you is he lets you pretty much auto boost either your to hit or your damages. And with that, a lot of times now, you just get these guys walking up and boop, 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 kill you off. And I mean, if you're going with Gordon, all of a sudden you can pop Gordon's feet to pull things in, lower their defense, make it easier for the Earthbreaker. Osram, I believe, he has the snipe, so all of a sudden it has a much farther threat. If you're going with Durgan, he can make it so that all those are boosted by the feet. So if you're using Thor to boost your to hits, then the feet is boosting the damage. So pretty awesome stuff there. And you can even do a crazy Gordon list, because since Rulik allow you to take one more choice of everything, even though you can normally only take 2 Colossals, it actually lets you take 3. Now, normally that doesn't matter because Colossals are so expensive. However, your Colossal's only 18 points, I believe, and Gordon has 7 jack points. So what it actually lets you do is take 3 Colossals. So you can be running Gordon and 3 Earthbreakers, which is terrifying and very, very powerful. Now, if you're not a person who likes running those Colossals, especially if you don't like running multiple, then you'll be having some challenges. Like I said, if you don't like doing that, you'd probably want to really look into taking the other mercenary troops. But if you're refusing to take the other troops and refusing to go embrace their Colossal, you really are hamstringing yourself. And you have to really realize what you're doing there. Now, you don't have to go for multiples. You could be just rolling 1 with, whatever Rulik stuff you want to take. But what I'm really trying to get across here is that if you want to be very competitive with Rulik, you'll want to be basing off of the Colossal there, the Earthbreaker. And that's really what it comes down to. So either way, I hope you really enjoy it. Here we have Vil Amala saying, in fantasy, I adore orcs and goblins and always buy the latest army book, but I have never managed to actually collect and paint an army for them. Do you think they are a difficult army to start? Maybe it's the sheer amount of units to choose from that makes it hard, or maybe the general quirkiness of the army. Well, orcs and goblins, good old orcs and goblins, they can be good or they can be bad to start with, depending on the type of player you are. I think orcs and goblins are very good because they have an access to pretty much all the different types of units you might see in fantasy. So they'll have your regular infantry, they'll have your elite infantry, they'll have your ranged units, they'll have your cav, they'll have your chariots, they'll have your war machines, they'll have your monsters. Really, all the main types of units that you see in fantasy, you'll find in orcs and goblins. With the exception, well, they have monstrous infantry, but they don't have really monstrous cav. You could run units of like monstrous spiders or gigantic cave squigs or whatever, but that's really just more the jank talking. But so they really have all those options that you can really experience the whole game from. Now, they're also good in that they can just be a lot of fun, right? There's so many different choices. You get to do so many crazy things. Fun things are happening all the time. The problem is that definition of fun. And this is where we get into the reason why orcs and goblins might not be good to start. If you're the type of player who does not like random events, who likes to have tight control of an army, and if the idea of having a brilliant plan being ruined because you rolled a 1 for animosity, orcs and goblins might not be the one for you. You know, that might be the type of army that makes you say, fantasy's stupid, and then never come back. So that's really what you have to ask yourself. You know, are you ready to kind of embrace that quirkiness, or is it really going to bug you? And then that'll answer your question right there. James Clark from Tale of Four Gamers, assuming they're still doing that podcast, says, maybe this has been covered, and if it has been, just point me to the video covered it in. But I was wondering what your thoughts were on War Room or any other apps for using during or prior to games. I noticed you used for command make lists, but for keeping track in game, would you just use the cards, or do you use apps for tracking hits? Well, okay, so I highly support the cards, and I'll tell you why. War Room is a fantastic program if you have a tablet or an iPhone or whatever. If you don't, it's actually then useless to you. Now, let's assume then that you do have something that can actually run War Room. It's great to have all the rules on hand. You can use it to keep track of all your damage. You don't need to worry about having all the cards all over the place. But it has two very big drawbacks. The first one is the battery life. If you are in a tournament and you are basing everything off this tablet, and all of a sudden you've been doing this all day, you're going to your last game, and boom, it dies, you're in big trouble. You know, your cards will never just lose power and go away. They'll always be there. But that War Room is really dependent on you having power. So that's kind of a big deal. The second one is what happens if your opponent asks to see your cards. You know, it's in the right to say, hey, can I see your card so I can understand how this caster works? And all of a sudden, you are going to have to hand over your tablet to your opponent if you wish to do that. So if you're comfortable with handing over your hundreds of dollars tech, then okay. But personally, I would rather just hand over some 50-cent cards. So from that, you should probably gather that I highly support the cards. I find they are great for tracking. However, if I'm ever playing against somebody who's using War Room, I have no issue with it. For the vast majority of it, it doesn't cause any issues whatsoever. It's really just in those cases where you are needing to share information, or when it's a long day, or somebody forgot to plug in their tablet, and then all of a sudden the power is the problem. As for other things, I mean, I've even seen people make up their own. So, I mean, say in Excel, maybe they don't want to pay for War Room. Maybe they don't like the functionality of a forward commander, or maybe they just don't want to have to access the internet to use it. And because of that, then they make up their own system in Excel. And I mean, it can work very well. I've seen ones where they make up their own damage grids, either with circles or their own made grids or whatever. But the main issue there is the trust issue. I mean, it doesn't come from privateer press, and whenever you see this stuff, you gotta wonder, like, I hope he made his grids right. I hope he didn't mess up somehow. So if I'm ever up against somebody who's using that, I'm a trusting guy, and so I'll be like, oh, okay, that's fine, no big deal. But I can see where a lot of others be like, no, you go get those cards. I do not exactly trust these little spreadsheets that you made. So do be prepared for that. You do really want to side with something that is legit, which is supported by privateer press in some manner. Not that War Room is, but not that Forward Commander is. As I understand it, they're just their own entity. They say, hey, we're going to support you guys because we think you're awesome, and Privateer Press says thanks, and or rather doesn't send them any notices or whatever, cease and desist, because they're not jerks. So there's that. Now we're going to be moving on to what is the last question on here, and it is saying, hey, Malorian, unfortunately I can't join any of your Paintisodes because of time zones. Anyway, I played Menoth back in Mark 1. Now, a while ago, I came back to Wormhorns with Scorn. I bought the starter and played a couple of games, but I don't know what to buy next. Guys from local game stores said that Pain Givers are great, so I'm thinking about them. Also, what caster should I use? From my little experience, I noticed that Morgul is kind of weak for beginners because he is very low armor. Cheers from Poland. Yeah, that's probably one of the worst starter sets in that Morgul is a character a caster that can be very powerful and used very well in competitive games. So, I mean, it's not like he's super horrible or anything. However, he does take a lot of finesse, and he does need his support. And so to have this as a starting caster probably isn't the right idea. He's no Krios or anything like that, which is really self-explanatory, very easy to pick up for new players. Morgul you have to be very careful with because, like you say, he is all based on his high defense and has almost no armor. So if he ever gets knocked down, it is game over. So one of the things you'll want to look into is the Brute. Now, the Cyclops Brute has this wonderful animus that says you can't be knocked down. And that is Morgul's best friend. So if you do plan to stay with Morgul, I would definitely be looking into a Cyclops Brute as like your very next purchase. Pain Givers are definitely very good and a unit that's going to be in almost all your lists, just like Choir is in almost all your Menoth lists. However, to make Morgul really click and to try and keep him safe, yeah, you probably want to get that Brute in there ASAP. Other things you're going to want, things like Moloch Karn is amazing. Things like the Bronze Back is amazing. Those are some of the beasts that you can really just throw in there, and they'll do fantastic for you. As for casters, I have to admit I am not exactly a Scorn expert. In fact, they're one of the armies that I don't play crazy lots, but some of the biggest ones out there that are doing very well in the tournament scene are ones like Xerxes. Now, Xerxes is doing very well because he has this tier list called Fist of Halak. Now, in this game, you have your regular infantry, and then you have your kind of more medium infantry that have multiple boxes. And what his tier does is let you take those units for a point cheaper. And so what you'll do is just take a bunch of min units, and you'll just have this entire list full of hit points and meat. And with Xerxes, I mean, not only are they weapon masters anyway, but with Xerxes' feat, they are just going to kill whatever they want. He will allow them to move through each other, so it's really easy to get them where you want. However, that is definitely an investment. That's not a cheap thing to buy all those models. So, if you're looking to not spend much, yeah, Pain Givers, Cyclops, Brute, that's the way to go. If you're looking to spend more money and get really competitive right away, I'd be looking at things like the Fist Halak. Other good casters, I mean, even like Xerxes 2. He came onto the scene, and he is really cool because he's running this massive rhinoceros and all these things. And for the most part, these battle engine casters are seen as pretty bad, mainly because their bases are so huge that they're hard to keep safe. They really take a lot of thinking to make them work around terrain, and so that you're not tripping over your own feet. But Xerxes is really kicking butt. So definitely somebody you can be looking into there as well that I have seen a good amount of in the local tournament scene. And then you really just start. See, the problem with Scorn is that you get into these lists that really require different units. Something that might be easier is if you go with, I want to call him Tubby McFatty Pants. He's the big, huge, fat guy that's being carried by the little whatever creatures, like the agonizer type things. And he has a tier list called Chain Gang. And really, you know, like the elephants are cool, right? All the gladiators and bronze backs and stuff. And what his tier list does is let you take those guys for a point cheaper. So what you do is have this list with just like a bunch of heavies, and normally that doesn't work out very well, but because you get so many of them and they're cheap enough to work, it does actually fairly well. So that's another thing you could look into, and I'm sure there's a lot of beasts out there that you could be picking up for easier and like fairly cheap. So that could be another really good way to go. So that's all the questions that were left there. I'm going to refresh this now and see what was left on this actual one now. Still got some people watching. That's always a good thing. Let's see what we got. John Feed saying, do you think there are any non-mercenary casters lists that would benefit from an Earthbreaker run by Thorn Steinhammer? I would take it a Signar like that. Basically, every caster would love to have that combination. It is really awesome. So is there? Yes. Who? Everyone. Rafael Mash saying, I've just painted Avatar of Menoth. I bought it because it doesn't need caster's focus, and I want to run as much Warjacks as possible. Well, I might take Choir of Menoth and Vassal, but other than that, Warjacks only. What other Menoth Warjacks would be good? What Menoth casters are good for running Jacks? Right now, I have P. Krios and Krios 3. Well, I'm going to say this first. I mean, probably I shouldn't be pumping other areas or my rivals when I'm doing this. And actually maybe wouldn't help very much because I think this is actually in the paid for section. But Chain Attack actually did a video where they cover every single Jack. So I'm going to do my best. But again, I'm not a Menoth expert. I'll do my best here. Now, some of the ones you're going to want to really look into is the Reckoner. The Reckoner is a fantastic Jack that has good things going for it for days. You know, it has this great gun. It has assault. It has flare. It has Ashen Veil. It has all these really great things, and all he really needs is a focus to let him shoot and a vassal to make him shoot more, and so forth. So definitely a very, very good warjack you'll see in a lot of places. Now, depend who you're taking, you might also want to take a Devout. A Devout is a cheap light warjack, which is also a shield guard. So one example is I believe that the Harbinger has a tier list which makes jacks cheaper, and she has 10 focus, so she can run them. And the problem, though, is that she's a large base, so a lot of times she likes taking arrows to the face. So if you have a shield guard, that's really good to have. With that as well, you want to look at the Crusader. The Crusader is your general cheap, heavy beat stick, and for normally 7 points, that is a hell of a deal. With these tiers that make them cheaper, now we're talking like 6 points, and that is just so, so good for only 6 points. So definitely a place to look into, those jacks there. Other ones like the Templar have their uses as well. That's really it for the big ones that really stand out. I mean, like Adjudicator, it's good, but I mean, that's going to be quite the investment. Colossals aren't cheap. But for the most part, when I see people spamming jacks, there's also the Repenter, a little light jack that shoots multiple rockets, which are inaccurate, but they can kill a lot of stuff. And if you're high defense, well, what the hell? I was going to miss anyway. I just might as well try and scatter onto you. And between various, like choir or whatever, I can be pretty sure I'm going to make you cry. So good way to go with that. Now, what casters are actually good for running Menoth Jacks? Well, I already said the Harbinger, so her tier list and her lots and lots of focus, that definitely puts her into that bracket. You also have Severius 1 and 2. Severius 1 because he has Eye of Menoth, so basically with your choir, all your guys will be +3 to hit and +3 damage, which just makes them insanely deadly. Severius 2 has a tier list, again, that lets you get Crusaders for a point cheaper. So lots of Crusaders means lots of Jacks, and blah, let's go get them. Now, you said that you had Krios 1 and Krios 3. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of experience with Krios 3, so I'm not going to comment on him. However, you could run Krios 1 as a Jack caster. In fact, a lot of times when you do face Krios, he's running 2 Reckoners and that Repenter, that has that super rocket thing. And what he does is like, hey, you're all knocked down, and then, hey, now boom, boom, you're dead. Because not only am I auto-hitting, but if anything was in your way, it is now no longer in your way because things that are knocked down don't block line of sight. Now, you can also take things like his Journeyman Warcaster, and he can help running a Jack for you. Like you said, the Avatar Menoth really just runs himself, so there's no reason why you couldn't throw him into that list. So I believe Krios could be a really, really nice one to take. So we're going to go and refresh this here. Got a couple of other messages sent to me. We'll see what these things are. Oh, some things are hidden because they're spam. What could be spam? The Death 0706. Hey, Malorian, have you played or have any interest to play Malifaux's 2nd edition? I have never played, and I don't really have any interest in it, mainly because it's just another system. I really try and limit the systems I'm in. Already, I mean, the reason why I got out of fantasy is because if you want to be competitive, you have to really be able to have that focus, really focus on the one system to know the rules well enough to be at that competitive level. And so already I dropped a game. I love fantasy. So taking on another game like Malifaux, it's just would be counterproductive. I would take up War Machine again before I started Malifaux. Now, that's not saying anything against Malifaux. I think the whole, I mean, I've talked about my friends with it. The whole idea about it where you have your deck of cards and it's based off of cards rather than dice. Come on, get out of here, hair. Is very interesting to me. The idea that there's very few models, of course, speaks out to me. It's just, again, I don't want to be investing not only money but just memory to learning this other game. So, sorry. Enjoy it. I know a lot of people love it, but it won't be for me. I'm going to see if I have any other comments here. We are getting pretty close here to the end anyway. I know Whoopi was wanting to join, but when I saw all the questions, oh, maybe Whoopi is around here. I'm going to send an invite to Whoopi. If he is still here, which I'm guessing he's not, because he probably saw I was just talking about War Machine and went away. We'll try good old Whoopi, see if he wants to add. Why is it asking if I want to add Whoopi Goldberg? No, that's not the Whoopi I'm after. This thing sometimes, you know, I type in a person's name to add them, and it'll completely miss them. Oh, there we go. Now it's adding. So Whoopi, if you are out there, I just sent you the invite. I have no problem staying later to talk about that stuff. I am almost done painting my stuff here. So here is this Firefly, and here's the second one. So I have now, ooh, almost screwed that up. I have now painted everything, did the little lines on the side to show what the front arc is, and now I just have to do the wash. So I'll just be, I can do the wash right now, and that's going to be it. Otherwise, that does seem to be it for the questions. Hopefully you guys like this idea of posting the video before, so you guys can just load your questions onto there. Oh, it's just 7 minutes ago. So Whoopi, you should be around still, unless you just saw this and left. Join on, Whoopi. Yeah, hopefully you guys like that. I mean, I want to be doing this more to be able to spend some time with you guys and say, hey, what questions do you have? I can answer them right now. Be they, for War Machine, for fantasy, for movies, whatever you want. Just something to hang out. And again, this is something where I'm trying to encourage painting, right? I'm hoping that while people are listening to this, they're not just, staring at me or staring at the fish. Apparently everybody loves the fish all the time, but hopefully you're painting your own stuff too. So with that, please post down below whatever you are painting. It just makes me feel good whenever I hear like, oh good, people were actually painting while they were watching this, and not just trying to count up like how many times I scratched my nose or whatever, right? Because there really is not much to take from this. But we will give this another 8 minutes. If Whoopi does not join, then we will call it a day. If he does, we'll probably be talking about some other stuff. But anyway, before we go off like that, I did have something else I want to talk about, which was that I got a very awesome gift in the mail. And what it is it's from Rothan Studio. Now, I am still going to be doing a separate video. I'm still trying to compile some other good pictures to put along with it to make it really show off his skills. But he is another painting service, but he's also a conversion service. Now, back when I was in fantasy, he offered back then to make something for me, to paint something for me. But with my Orcs and Goblins, with my 14,000 points I already had, I was like, well, thanks for the offer, but I actually literally don't need anything. So how about we just put this off for a while, and then all of a sudden, when it comes out to 9th, or if there's a new Orc and Goblin book with new options, hey, why don't we do something then? And he said, yeah, sure, let's do that. Well, unfortunately, I went to fantasy, and that didn't happen. And so I got this thing from the guy, and what he made for me was some War Machine flags. And what he made for me was these little like mounds of mountain really with this gem on the top. So it looks really cool, like this arcane power source or whatever. But the best thing is that it's hollow, and inside goes inside this little light and this little battery. Turn it on, and all of a sudden the crystal at the top glows, and it is awesome. So. Like I said, I am going to be trying to do another video for that. Also, as well, I put up a whole bunch of battle reports lately that were the video style. That's really because I had somebody over to do one like that, and then I ran a tournament, which allowed me to get a lot more. Don't worry, if you do like the picture versions, I will be doing a lot more picture versions after that. I mean, it is the easiest thing to do. And really my plan for the new year is that I'm trying to set up a system where I'll be having people over once a week to do that video style. And I'm going to try and see if, well, I'm going to have them here. So maybe I can, everybody's been asking, can we do interviews? Can we do this other stuff? And I can do that next year when I'm actually having people over specifically for that. And then, of course, whatever other fun games I play, I'll be all with the pictures. No matter which version you like, I'll be going with that. As well, I've had some people saying like, hey, can you try and explain what's going on with these scenarios a little bit better? And one of the things I plan to do once the 2015 ones drop, because it's not really worth my time to do it now, is if you go over and look at advanced maneuvers, they have this little clip so that no matter what scenario it is, they throw it in, and it's just this little quick 15-second description of what the scenario is. And that's what I plan to create for the 2015 ones, because those are going to be coming out in the next month or so, and I might as well do it then, right? And I'll have a little thing at the start that shows up the scenario, because, hey, if it's GW, I get sued, but because it's privateer press, they're like, yeah, privateer press. So I can just put that out there, show you guys what the rules are, so you know what I'm actually trying to do, and really trying to move this to the next level. I have been very happy to see that my number of subscribers, after losing all the ones I did from fantasy, did not go below 5,000. So that was cool to see. And with that, now I'm trying to now take my videos to the next level. So I want to get a better video camera. I'm trying to look into see what I want to get for that now, pricing them out, making sure they have the right features, because as nice as this little webcam is, it does not work well for that type of a video. I'm sure you guys have already noticed that when I set it up, it'll make things, okay, first two things. First of all, anything that's in the front, that's what's really high focus. So if you look there, awesome detail. As it goes past the table and the farther you go, all of a sudden it's crappier and crappier focus. And it's just, it's really frustrating for me to set this thing all up and have it focus on just the front and have everything else being fuzzy and crappy. As well, I have to always make the decision that either I have to do the fast record way so that when I'm done, it just finishes like that, or I have to do the high quality way, and when I'm done, it takes like an hour or more to actually render. And the problem is, of course, if I go to that crappier one, not only is the video quality worse, it actually makes the audio quality worse too. So very, very frustrating. I'm going to reload this to see if there were any more questions. I'm guessing that if Whoopi Womp didn't join by now, that he probably is not going to be, which is unfortunate. Yeah, that's it. So either way, we are at pretty much the hour. Next week, I'll be doing the same thing. So the day before, I'll be releasing a video saying, hey, give me your questions. And what I'm going to do is once I'm done, like I'm going to go back and delete that last video now, and I'll be making a new one for the next time, the day prior. If you have any other suggestions of things you want me to talk about, just make sure you put on that video that's going to come up, and I can review it all there. But either way, thanks for watching. I got my 2 little fireflies now, so I can do my Nemo 2 tier and have some janky fun with that. And otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you later. Bye.